Hi, I'm Joe Lane, and I'll be guiding you through a short video about giving presentations within an academic context. In this video, I'll be giving you some pointers on presentation style, how to think about what you want to say and why, and a few pieces of general advice for public speaking. By the end of the video, you should have an idea of what your audience will expect in the conference at the end of the project, how to meet their expectations and feel confident about speaking in front of your peers and strangers. Just remember, you'll have to do this at some point in your career, whether that's academic or otherwise, so these are helpful skills to take away with you after the project too. Presenting, or public speaking, within an academic setting can take a variety of forms, most of which I'm sure you're familiar with. These different forms serve different purposes. All of you will have attended lectures, typically an hour long, where the speaker is often supported by slides and additional material. Or you may have been to seminar classes where the tutor may speak for shorter lengths of time, with or without visual aids. And the chances are that at some point in your undergraduate studies, you'll have to give, or may have already given, a short group or individual presentation to your peers addressing a particular topic or question. And in most of these cases, the speaker is not explicitly discussing their own research project directly. For instance, lectures and seminars are often thematic and contain the work of many different scholars, whilst the presentations you may do in class are often based on secondary material. If you've attended an academic conference or a seminar series in a research institute, for example, you will have come across conference or seminar paper presentations in which researchers speak exclusively about their own research. Again, this is often supported by visual aids such as slides or handouts. Many academic conferences now also have poster sessions, much like the one you'll have to present at the end of the project, in which researchers present their research findings through the medium of a poster, and now some conferences are also inviting contributors to speak alongside their poster for around 5 minutes. There are 2 points I'd like to make here concerning these different examples of presentations. Firstly, there are 2 distinct types of presentation, based on the content that's being delivered. So we can think about lectures, for example, as being composed of insights from numerous scholars and studies assembled together to provide an overview or introduction to a particular topic, which touch on key themes and questions. Then there's the second type of presentation, such as the conference paper presentation, in which content is almost always driven by specific independent research that has been conducted in order to answer a given research question. So, in basic terms, the speaker in a lecture will more than likely be talking about the work of other people, so the work other people have done, whereas a conference or seminar speaker will usually be talking about work they have done. So there are 2 broad categories of presentations. This brings us to the second point, which counters these differences. You'll be giving a short research presentation in the final conference alongside your poster. But if you haven't experienced a research presentation such as those I've discussed before, don't worry, because the skills you need are exactly the same. All you need to do is remember to be enthusiastic, because you are, after all, talking about your own research that you've been working on for the entire term. The first thing you need to do when thinking about giving a presentation of any kind is to think about your audience. Who are they? What is the context of the presentation, and what is its purpose? And this will also help you to think about what to present. You need to think, what's your research question? Why is it important? What is your answer to that question? And how did you reach that conclusion? These questions will also help you pitch your presentation at the right level and hold interest. For instance, you may be familiar with quantitative methodologies, but there's no guarantee that your audience will be. So filling your poster and presentation with logistic regression models and 2-stage complicated equations may not be the best way to get your message across. Remember, your audience are paramount here. Ask yourself the following questions. What do you think they want to know? And contrast this with what do they really want to know? A good presentation critically reflects on these questions and will engage the audience throughout. and it will also tell you what the big idea or hypothesis is very early on. Remember, you're not Agatha Christie, so just as an academic essay isn't a crime novel revealing the big plot twist right at the end, neither is an academic presentation, so remember to front-load your hypothesis. Now, I want you to think for a moment about the best lecture or presentation you've attended over the last year, and think, why was it so good? Well, the chances are it was because the speaker was confident, engaging, the structure had a logical flow, and the content was manageable and not over-ambitious. Now, a good presentation does have a solid structure. And this isn't a strict set or predefined structure that I'm going to describe, but a sensible approach has an introduction, very briefly discusses literature, concepts and themes to position your research, and then it will launch into your methodology, discuss data, give several key points that are crucial to your argument, and hammers home a conclusion. Your introduction should offer a welcome, some sort of self-identification, and most importantly, your research question and big idea, or your hypothesis. You need to say why this is interesting and important, and importantly, think about why people should stop to listen to your ideas. Remember, this short presentation should be about the work you have done. Literature is important, but don't replicate what you have on your poster in more detail, and try and make it clear exactly where your own work comes through. And you can also refer to your methodology briefly to let people know how you've gone about answering the research question. Evidence, illustrations, facts and figures are all great ways of developing, justifying and supporting your argument. Because remember, this is still an academic presentation, so you need to provide evidence, not just conjecture or opinion. Make sure you refer back to the research question whenever you bring in a point or argument, and tell the audience how what you've just said is relevant to that question. A good hypothesis is often like a chorus in a song. It has a very clear message and comes back after every substantive point. Remember, you also want your audience to remember this. Do have a small conclusion, revisiting your original aims and argument to wrap up your presentation, so you don't end up with the words, and that's it, or even worse, just standing there in silence. Finish on a strong point, perhaps by posing a question or commenting on the future direction of research, and thank your audience, and do make sure to invite comments and questions if this is appropriate. Okay, so by this stage, you'll have some idea of a rough structure of what kinds of things you may want to talk about. When you've put this together fully, you'll then want to be thinking about the presentation itself in terms of style and how you will speak and present. So, beforehand, please double check in advance who will be saying what, and think about where you will be standing, and please don't all huddle in front of each other or in front of the poster. I recommend you practice this at least twice, and this is only a 5-minute presentation, so practicing won't take you very long at all. Remember to speak clearly and concisely, and loud enough at a measured pace. Nerves and anxiety can cause speech to speed up considerably, so if you feel like things are running away from you, just take a moment, take a deep breath, and perhaps have a bottle or cup of water to take a sip from to buy you some time and continue. No one will interrupt you unless you are wildly over the time limit. Speak with conviction and enthusiasm, because if you don't believe what you're saying, chances are the audience won't either. Appropriate body language is essential. Maintain eye contact, smile, don't stand with your hands in your pockets or look bored, and engage the audience, so never turn your back on them to read from the poster. You can use your hands to refer to the poster when needed, and if you are reading off a script, please try not to just look down at the piece of paper for the entire time that you're talking. You also need to show the audience that you care about them and try to involve them, so this can be done, for example, with rhetorical questions or the use of the collective we. After your presentation, wait patiently for applause, questions and comments. Listen to the questions being asked, and if you're not sure what a person is asking you, don't be afraid to ask them for more questions or to check that you've understood their question correctly. Respond where necessary, thank them for their input and question, and you can always check that they're satisfied with something like, "Does that help answer your question?" And remember, never argue or become hostile with an audience. So here's your final do's and don'ts checklist. Do check what is expected of you when you're invited to speak. Prepare in plenty of time. Establish a clear structure. Prepare good, summarised notes. Embrace nerves and realise and accept that all good speakers experience nervous tension before speaking. Plan and rehearse the start with care. Think about the pace and enthusiasm in your delivery. Ensure that everyone can hear you and you speak clearly. Maintain good, evenly distributed eye contact with your audience. And plan and rehearse the conclusion with care. Do not prepare too much material and check your timing. Try not to read the script verbatim in a monotone voice. Do not start with an apology. Also, try not to risk weak or dodgy jokes. Think about your posture and try not to rock, sway, or use overly repetitive gestures. Do not clutter your visual aids, so in this case, your poster. Do not gabble or rush your speech. And never ever assume hostility. Your audience will be polite and is genuinely interested in what you have to say. Finally, if you take these points on board, your presentation should go smoothly. You've done the really hard work. You've decided on your research project, devised a suitable question, researched existing literature, designed and conducted your research, analysed data, arrived at conclusions, put them all together in an academic poster, and now you get to tell people all about this and show off what you've achieved. And believe me, it is fun when you get to do it. You just need to put the work in beforehand.